Chuckles. There we go. I'm not going to say on anything because, yeah, so let's do this. Thank you for joining us, and check out the amazing resources we have available at godslovelive.com. That's godslovelive.com, bringing you God's love each and every day, live on the internet. 24/7 gospel music, and occasionally we get into some interesting conversations. Tune in, 6 o'clock Monday morning. Chuckles will be back on godslovelive.com. Right now, a little bit of Micah Tyler taking you to the end of the program. I forgot to mute my mic. I was finishing up a program. Let's just get this started because it's on YouTube. Started at least. I was finishing up a program, trying to get this video underway. I got to go connect it to the Facebook. I got to go connect it to Facebook. I end up with like 4 or 5 minutes on YouTube before we get it on Facebook, because it'll take me a couple of seconds here to get this going. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon. How you doing, folks? Hope you're having a great day. I hope you're enjoying the music. I hope that you are staying safe, happy, and healthy out there. And this is not going to be a long video. We talked earlier throughout the day, a couple of times, actually. A couple of times about the statement, love isn't blind, it's reckless. And I could talk about that. I could talk about that like for the rest of the week. I could talk about that for the rest of the month, honestly. This statement that love isn't blind, it's reckless, is something that I came across almost completely by accident. Like I said, I heard it on a TV show years ago, and I just immediately, it just immediately resonated with me completely. And then so eventually it became kind of a mantra almost of mine. And I had some friends who were like, man, I hate that, love isn't blind. The way it was, the way it originally started, I had some friends and my boss at Magnum Broadcasting, she absolutely hated it. And I understand why. She was looking at it only from a negative point of view. And I did change it from what it was to love isn't blind, it's reckless. And I did so not so much for the let's not hurt someone's feelings kind of thing. Although I'm not out to hurt feelings. I really am not. That wasn't really why I was like, all right, let me adjust my statement here. I heard the song from Corey Asbury, Reckless Love. And I started thinking about all of these different times in my life where I literally got to see the reckless love of God. Where even though I was not the obedient child I should have been, I was not following the Lord's lead, I was not trying to follow His, sometimes not even trying at all to follow His will, but He rescued me, saved me, kept me safe from myself. Very first time, shortly after I got out of college the first time around, I had a pretty good habit of my own when it comes to. I liked cocaine. I really liked cocaine. That was kind of like my. Of course, that was the time. That time in history. That's what it was. We were a bunch of cokeheads. But I should have been in a place of being very much addicted. I ended up not being in that place of being seriously addicted to anything and having to deal with that addiction. And I can only surmise that it's because God's love protected me from that very thing. And there was the time I told you guys about the other day where I was driving and the car broke down, and I never wore or carried a coat around with me. And then, boom, here we go, coat. Like, it was insane. A friend of mine had bought one and insisted on buying one for me, and I never for a second thought that it would matter or whatever. But then there you go. Next thing you know, here I am. And I had to see, recognize, understand that it was very much God looking out for me. This friend of mine randomly one day buys me a coat, and then the next day, during one of the worst winter storms we've seen in my lifetime, that was the El Nino. Remember the El Nino? I think it was El Nino. It was one of those L's. You think about it, like, it should have and could have been a disaster that I broke down in the middle of all that. But instead, it was just slightly annoying. That's the only way I could say it. It was just slightly annoying. It didn't end up being a huge problem. It just ended up being, a little bit of inconvenience, I guess, is the best way to say that. So I have to sit back now, especially, at the time, even at the time, I kind of realized God was protecting me. I just didn't understand why. Now I'm beginning to understand. I'm beginning to understand why. It's not even that I completely understand why. It's just I'm beginning to understand why at this point. And it's like, man, everything that I thought I knew isn't what I thought I knew. Everything has to change. And then I started going back, and I'm like, okay, what about this and what about that? And so I started really looking into some of where I was at and where I needed to be and stuff like that. And it's like, man, I can't believe that you've protected me all these years. And it just doesn't, it's reckless to continue to believe the way God did that someday I would be worthy. Now, he knew. Right? So, and again, when we talk about love isn't blind, it's reckless. When you're talking in a human form, my love for my son isn't blind, it's reckless. I can see where my son is failing, doing wrong, whatever. But I'm not blind, I see it, but I recklessly sometimes still try to love him in a way that is going to make the difference. And that goes for anyone, really, when we're partnering with Messiah and doing what we're trying to do here. It really does go for anyone. When we help people who are in need, when we do for the least of these, as he says, a lot of times that's reckless. We're looking at people and we're determining, so as humans, flesh, fallible, broken beings, we're looking and saying, okay, does this person deserve whatever help I'm giving them? And the answer, of course, is probably not. With a few exceptions, the answer is probably no. They don't, not really. But then you kind of have to understand that I don't deserve the grace and love of God that I've received. I don't deserve to be protected by God the way I have been. I don't deserve, if I was getting what I deserve, that would be a disaster. If the Lord gave us what we've earned, think about that for a minute. That's one of them things that, like, when you start thinking about it, you're like, oh, wait a second. Like, how completely and utterly destroyed would I be if he gave me what I deserved? Because what I deserve is torment and punishment for my iniquities. And what I'm getting is a share of the reward, co-heir with Christ, who gave his life to purchase my debt. Think about it like a debt collector. A debt collector goes to a credit card company, buys your credit card debt for 5 cents or 10 cents on the dollar. Basically, if you owe $100, they give them 10, and then they come and try to collect from you. And if they get 50, well, you saved $50. The company that you originally owed the debt to got 10 that they weren't going to get because you were ignoring them or were unable to pay, or maybe someday you would have, who knows. But they didn't want to wait. And the debt collector actually makes a $40 profit. That's how that works. But in this case, if you look at it this way, which it's a little silly, but if you look at it this way, he paid the full price of the debt that we're accruing in our lifetime. Paid the full debt, knowing that he's never going to get any of it. Not like he's making a profit like these debt collectors. He's not making anything off this. He's just suffering, and then you and I get all of the benefit of his willingness to allow himself to be sacrificed on that cross so that we can be reconciled with the Father. He's sitting back going, listen, I want you to know the love that my Father has for all of us. So I'm going to take all of your debt. I'm going to take everything that you deserve and have earned from the Father, the righteous anger of the Father that should be our earnings, as it were, the wages of sin or death, kind of thing. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to give you the reward the Father has promised me for doing properly. That's what Christ did. So we are, 3 weeks? Is that right? 3 weeks away from Good Friday? Yep. 3 weeks away from Good Friday. Working our way through Lent. And I was kind of back and forth of whether or not to make a video even this afternoon, because I did the video I did earlier, which was on a whim. But I was kind of like, well, I think I am going to make a video, because I want to point everybody to part 1 and 2. You can see here part 3 is the name of this video. So if you're watching live, or if you're watching later, there are 2 other parts. Now, you don't necessarily have to watch them in order. That's for sure. But if you go check them out, then, are you watching now, Lumpy? I got a message from a friend, Mark. I don't know if he's watching the video or not. going to send him back a note, tell him happy birthday. Because, is it today or was it tomorrow? It might have been, or was it yes? I don't know. He has a birthday. It's like today, or maybe it was yesterday. So if you see Lumpy, Mark Plisco, that's his name, Plisco, Mark Plisco. I feel like he may or may not get mad at me but yeah, I doubt he'll care that I put his name out there. If you're watching, Mark, happy birthday, brother. Nice to have you on board with us, and I hope you're, enjoying these videos that I do. I come to this honest, and I come to it through years of ridiculous experience, of doing the stupid thing, of going the wrong direction, of following my own heart when I should have been listening to what the Lord was telling me through the Spirit at every turn. At every turn for a long time. And actually, Mr. Mark, that I was just telling you guys just to wish a happy birthday to, and that I was just wishing a happy birthday to, he could tell you some of the stories that he could tell you about when we were kids. Listen, we weren't ideal. We weren't the worst. I mean, I would say that. Like, we had a group of guys growing up. We did a lot of stupid things. Had a lot of stupid experiences. Most all of them brought on by our own action. And Mark could probably tell you a couple of stories of how God protected us. I'm sure he probably has a few about how he was protected by the Lord growing up, from our own selves, from others, from stupid things. Mark and I have known each other since we were, oh my goodness, kindergarten, first grade, something like that. I was like in first or second grade. He's a little bit older than me, so he'd been like second or third grade. But it's amazing to see the progression of people through the years, and I don't know where Mark is spiritually or in his walk with Christ, if he even is in a walk with Christ. I don't know. If you're not, brother, give me a call. Man, my number's right there, 814-651-8865. Stop down at the house. You know where it's at. Stop down, say hello. Remember how they always used to talk when we were kids about how I was going to be a preacher? Well, not exactly, but I do a lot of sermonizing here on. That's what my wife calls it, sermonizing. My wife calls them her midnight sermons at the foot of our bed, because a lot of times she'll ask me a question. It's her fault. She'll ask me a question, midnight or whatever. We're getting ready to go to sleep, and she'll look at me, hey, honey, and she'll ask me a question. I had a question, and she'll ask me. And then 3 hours later, I'm not even kidding, 3 hours later, here we go. She is, yeah, it gets quite interesting to walk through that, I'm going to tell you. We have spent a great deal of time working on things that we both, I don't know what you would call it, are unsure about, or have been working through, whatever. There's a lot of stuff that is quite interesting, that has been a big part of everything that we have going on in our lives. So I spent a great deal of time here we go. This isn't even my friend Mark. This is some scam. Oh, I'm not doing so well. I went to the doctor, found out I have strep throat. Oh, did you hear about the good news? Guaranteed after I tell him about it, after I say, no, I haven't, he's going to come back with, see, he called me Charles. And when he called me Charles, I was suspicious, because Lumpy has never in our lives called me Charles. Not once, not ever, not just it's just not a thing. but it definitely was a situation where I was suspicious, and now I know. And now I know. Knowing is half the battle. All right, I don't know. Let's see how long. We've been about 20 minutes on this live video, which is very, very phone it in Friday. Let's put it that way. It's very, very phone it in Friday. I haven't really. I just basically been rambling, huh? So I wanted to announce starting on hopefully Monday. I'm hoping we can get everything done in time for Monday. We're going to shift some things around. The programming is going to remain pretty much the same, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Here on God's Love Live, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. is live audio, wonderful gospel tunes, and that's the time where I just kind of like introduce you to, here's whatever songs play. That was Casting Crowns, and you're listening to Chuckles in the Morning, and coming up next, it's Mercy Me. And then we do have a couple of segments we do in the 6 o'clock hour. During the 6 o'clock hour, we do our Lenten reflection. And I'm thinking that we might change the name after Resurrection Sunday. We might change the name of that because it will no longer be the Lent season. So just our Kingdom Reflection. Oh, that's not bad, man. Let me write that. I should write that down. I should really write that down. Kingdom Reflection. That wouldn't be terrible. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, of course, we have our proverb reflect. I gotta remember how to spell reflection. In our 7 o'clock hour, we have our proverb of the day. But I'm thinking about changing that to like daily wisdom, so that we can use stuff other than proverbs, because we've worked our way. We've covered a lot of the proverbs. So then I write daily proverb. No, daily wisdom. Because then we could use things other than. Right now in the 8 o'clock hour, we're reading through Ecclesiastes. This is where we do a different book all the time. We read through one, and then we go in and we read through the next, and we go in and we read through the next. 9 through noon. Excuse me. 9 through noon is Pastor Ryan's cross-examination program. I got to get on him to make some more of those, if he can. We got about 33 or 34 of them, so it runs for a month. Although I don't actually have it set up to run for a month. I should, but I don't. And then from noon to 4, Chuckles in the afternoon, and this is where our big changes are coming. I was thinking about this earlier, and I want to make this a real thing. In the 12 o'clock hour, in the first hour, 12 o'clock, we're going to talk about fighting fear. That might change, might stay the same. Who knows? In the 1 o'clock hour, partnering with Messiah. In the 2 o'clock hour, love, and for the sake of this moment, isn't blind, it's reckless. I want to talk about reckless love. And in the 3 o'clock hour, wing it, at least for now. So I want to do each of these kind of in this way so that we can talk repeatedly about not just fighting fear, but healthy fear and healthy anger, emotions in general. That'll be that, fighting fear, and then love isn't blind. It's reckless. Both of those hours would be where we spend some time talking. I want to do something that's going to make a difference to those of you who are watching the videos, listening on the air. So the idea is that we're going to talk through some of these emotions and some of these attacks, and we're going to tie in. The 3 o'clock hour is going to be spiritual warfare and prayers. So what I want you to do is I want you to send in prayer requests. Send us your notes and tell us what's going on. And in the 3 o'clock hour together on the on-air program, we will spend some time in prayer. Actually, spend some time in prayer for these needs. So I'm going to work all weekend on redesigning the website the way that it needs to be, so that we can have this, be what it is we're looking for, or whatever. We're going to kind of, I want it to be, I want it to be value for the kingdom, which automatically is value for you, but value for the kingdom. I want to serve the kingdom in a way that we are helping people to become more kingdom-minded, to understand God's will more in their lives, and to move in God's will. So we have to learn to understand God's will, but at the same time, that's the partnering with Messiah, understanding God's will. How do we, if we're partnering with Messiah, we talked in the one video, he has given us authority and power, and it is a matter, the gospel is a matter of power, not just talk. We've talked about these things. Now, we've went through this, so what now? We've talked about this. We've determined, or at least I have, and you haven't challenged me, so I'm going to say that I'm going to go forward. That's the best way to put this. I don't want to remain stagnant. And I don't want to chase after low-hanging fruit. I'm willing to, if that's where God puts me, and that's a part of everything. But if you think about it, the low-hanging fruit are the people that are already in church on Sunday morning. This is going to get me so much love from the religious community. The low-hanging fruit are a lot of us that go to church on Sundays, that already know, at least in some way, God's, and it's not that I don't want to go after, it's not that I don't want the low-hanging fruit. We shouldn't have to work that hard to get the low-hanging fruit to where they need to be. How about we put it that way? Somebody who would be considered something like low-hanging fruit. My wife, God love her, this is her. She loves the Lord. She wants to serve Him. She's not sure exactly what that looks like in her life specifically, so she's working on it. We were talking the other day about Phillipsburg Recovers Project, and my wife watched a TV show where she saw a baby was born addicted to, I want to say, heroin. And the mother was like in a drug-induced coma and couldn't hold the baby. And then when she finally woke up, she took off. But the one nurse was like, they were like, we need somebody to cuddle this baby and hold her close and just, it's a way, it's how they help these kids that are born with this type of addiction. They call it, what did they call it? They called it rooming in, maybe, I think they said. It's an actual thing. I went and I looked at it. I would look to find out, and what it is that when these babies are abandoned, if a woman who's addicted to drugs abandons her child, they need somebody to start the bonding process, I guess you would call it. And this might be something that doesn't just happen with drug addicts. It's you know, um, it encourages breastfeeding and a maternal bond. And so the show that Sue was watching, it was all about the whole. This woman had a drug addiction, and she was in the hospital being treated, and the baby was, needing somebody to do this thing with her called rooming in. And my wife was like, "Oh, I wonder if we could do something like that. Maybe contact hospitals and say, hey, we want to set it up, so hopefully we're going to pray you never need it. But we're available. If a need arises, a birthing mother passes away while giving birth, or for whatever reason the mother's in a coma, or is a drug addicted person who can't be with their child, whatever the thing is, you could have ladies that are willing to volunteer and do this. Now, is that going to be a thing? I don't know. But my wife started embracing it. She's like, because like I said, she has a heart, especially when it comes to children, to serve the Lord. She does. And she doesn't always know exactly how she's going to do that. She doesn't know, she doesn't always get it right. And just like the rest of us, all of these things are true. But that doesn't stop us from looking for ways that we can do these things that would allow us to seriously affect, and we would seriously affect a child's life, maybe the parent's life. Maybe we could talk to that if for instance, and I'm just using this as an example, if the mother is somebody who suffers from addiction, or maybe she's just somebody who doesn't know what she's going to do, because come on, man, this stuff is scary. We keep telling people they shouldn't have abortions and they shouldn't end their pregnancies. And I've heard people before say, well, then you need to do, better once the child's born. Okay, then let's do better once the child's born. At least us Christians, us people who are pushing this. Then let's step up and let's do that. I talked to my son when he was getting ready to go to rehab, and he said, Dad, the problem is that nobody knows what to say to me or how to handle me, or I've ruined my life in such a way, and I've burnt all my bridges, and nobody will ever trust me again. And I said, it might be true for some people. And it might be. But there are those of us out here who are willing. Now, I will tell you, it's a lot easier for me. When Matt was here, Matt was not a child of mine. Of course, you guys know that. Matt's not my child, but he was here, and I was trying to help him, and it was easier for me. I gave him an easier time. I worked harder. I reached out more with Matt than I do with my own kid. Why? Well, there's fear that my child's going to slap my fingers away, fear that I am to blame for all that he's going through, and I may be a contributing factor to what he's going through, because that's for sure, but he's to blame. When it comes to who's at fault for your circumstance, it's you. Very, very, very rarely, once in the last 2 millennia, was there somebody who did nothing wrong at all and ended up suffering consequences for wrongdoing. And that was because he chose to, so that we could be reconciled to the Father. Yeah, my son CJ and I have had conversations. As a matter of fact, the last conversation I had with him was discussing that very thing. That very thing was huge. Like, Um, the self accountability. I said, because he can tell you whose fault it is that he's having the troubles he's having, that he's addicted to the things he's addicted to. And I don't know where he's at right now because he hasn't talked to me for months. But if he's not in a different place, at one point it was just everybody's fault but mine. And I've been there, man. I've been in the middle of terrible things that I just knew was everybody's fault but mine. So don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here speaking from some authoritative box where I've never done this. Nope, I've done it more often than I care to admit, actually. Because I am nothing if not a moron. I've said this before. I've said this multiple times. You guys know exactly how I feel about me. Thank God I didn't have to reside in that for the rest of my life. Thank God he showed me that I am worth it, that I am worthy, that I am someone worth love, holy and righteous in his eyes, because his son gave his life to cover me in his blood. And you, and all of us. So if you're out there and you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, struggling with pain of any sort, unable to reach out to family because you just feel like the things that you've done are so terrible and horrible, and you could never reach out and ask anyone to give you another chance to forgive you or love you, know that that's wrong. I'm not guaranteeing that all the people you've wronged are going to forgive you. I have no idea. The Lord will forgive you right now if you cry out to him. You can learn to forgive yourself. That I haven't, like I said, I haven't read the book yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. Melinda's book speaking on the common denominator being unforgiveness. The number one person you need to forgive most of the time is yourself. You need to recognize that the Lord has forgiven you so that you can sit back and go, yeah, I'm not. Because otherwise, every time the enemy comes accusing, and I've been through this. I've actually been through this in my own life. The enemy comes just rattling in my head about all the horrible that I am, and that it's insane that anyone should ever love me, let alone God, the Holy Father, the creator of the universe, and seriously. So looking at it, it's like, all right, I guess. We are very, very, for the most part, outgoing and outspoken about our the things we want to be outspoken about. But we don't sit and go, the love of God that allows me to even exist, that allows this world to exist, that allows any of us to have the grace we have through God's forgiveness, it's excruciatingly tangible. A friend of mine one time walked into the church, and he said that this was a couple of days later we were talking, and he was like, yeah, he says, the other day when I walked in, he hadn't been to church for a minute, and he said, when I walked in, he said, I could just feel God's love when I walked into the church. And I get it. You're not always going to feel that love every time you walk into a church. I've made that joke. The reason a lot of people go to jail to find Jesus is because he's not in a whole lot of churches. And it's a terrible joke, but it's kind of funny at the same time. Because sometimes that's true. And the church ladies, I grew up with a bunch of church ladies. They were all wonderful people. My mother, for a long time, was for a long time was a very much what I would call a church lady. If you don't know what that is, search on YouTube, church lady, Saturday Night Live. Back when Saturday Night Live used to be entertaining. Dana Carvey, is that right? Carvey, Dana, something like that. played a character called Church Lady, and it was very, very ridiculous, but at the same time, put you in mind of the Mississippi Squirrel revival, that Ray Stevens song, Mississippi Squirrel Revival or whatever. What did I say was Ray Stevens? No, is that right? Yeah, Ray Stevens did Mississippi Squirrel Revival. Um, in what was it, like the 80s? A great song. I absolutely love it. I might actually play it very momentarily here. I don't know if it'll get muted, but it's such a great song, and it just makes me always, whenever I think about it, I think about the people. And here's the thing, man. They don't know. This isn't malicious, okay? I talk about church ladies. My mother was a church lady. What I mean by that was my mother hid her cigarettes. On Sunday morning, we'd be pulling into church. My mother smoked at the time. She quit before she died, but years ago she smoked. And she would probably be super embarrassed to have me tell you this, but since she passed away in May of last year, I feel like I'm safe to tell you. She would take her cigarettes, and we had a minivan. She would put them in the little thing between the little, they had one of those consoles in between that you bought that you stuck in between your seats in your van. And she would stick her cigarettes down in there and hide them so that they weren't on the like dash and nobody saw them, because she doesn't smoke. Now you walk in, they could smell it because you just had one in the car on the way up the hill. But that never fazed my mom. She was, at the time, don't get me wrong, I'm not here poo-pooing on my mama. At the time, this was, the 80s, she was very much about the appearance of being a godly person. As I grew and watched my mother grow and watched my father who got saved, and I was able to learn things and kind of understand a little more this love of God's that we are given through our creation and the grace that we're given through the resurrection. I started sitting back and going, wait, it's not about that appearance of godliness or righteousness. Or at least it shouldn't be. And that's not to say that appearing, if you are trying to understand God's will and live in God's will in your life a little more, a little better, if you're trying to align your heart with the heart of God, you're going to appear as a more godly person. People are just going to see it. There's no way you can hide that, because of what that means, what that demands. And yes, accepting the gift and loving Christ, loving the Lord, our Father, and His Son, our Messiah, commands some action. Jesus was very, very specific about this. Those who love me will obey my commands, he said in John chapter 14, verse 15. If you love me, you will obey my commandments. I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper who will stay with you forever. He is the Spirit who reveals the truth about God. The world cannot receive him because it cannot see him or know him, but you know him because he remains with you and is in you. John 14, verse 15. That's where I started. He's very specific about that. If you love me, you will obey my commands. One of his commands, by the way, was when he said that whoever believes in him will do greater things than even he did. was going to try to look this up real quick, but you know, as is actually, I'm actually pretty decent at typing. But apparently I'm not good at typing and talking. Boy, am I ever not good at typing and talking. I hatcheted every word in that string of words. I just typed in whoever believes in me because I wanted to talk about this greater things thing. John 14:12. John 14:12. We talked about this the other day when we were talking about did Christ leave us with the authority and gifts and spiritual authority and gifts to do warfare? And I was like, yeah. Because if you go and you read, very truly, this is John 14:12. Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I've been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. Now, we had a very lengthy discussion on our video the other day, which you are encouraged to look up. It would be Partnering with Messiah. I can tell you the title here in just a second. Partnering with Messiah. Let's see, where are we at? I think it was, does Jesus give us authority? Do we have authority? I can tell you, I'm scrolling down right now to look for it. How can we fear? Cause me to, okay. Shalom, peace. Nope. It's back a little ways yet. Living in the kingdom, partnering with Messiah. There's a lot of partnering with Messiah videos here. I did not realize how many of these there were. Good, beautiful afternoon. How you doing? I may have to go look at my YouTube channel because I could probably find a little better and quicker that way. But yeah, this idea of, you know, partnering with Messiah in a way that he gives us authority over our bodies and over to heal, over I mean, all of that. So let's see if I can find this real quick. Man, it's hard to even say it's in my lives. It's crazy to think of how many videos I've actually made. There's been a lot of them. How do we serve in our daily... Oh, here, does Jesus still share his work, authority, and power? There's a couple of them with that title. Streamed February 19th and 20th and in that area. You go check that out. Go check that out. You're going to find, I think, and if you don't, if you go through the video and you are like, man, this dude is way off the words of Christ or the actual mission or scripture or instruction that we've gotten from our Lord, whatever, this guy's way off. Okay? I want to see it. I want to see it. Love requires that you show it to me. As a matter of fact, if I'm wrong, love requires correction from my brothers and sisters in Christ. So please do. So please do tune in. I'm going to wrap it up because I didn't mean to be this long, but here we are, just under an hour. So please tune in on Monday. GodsLoveLive.com. GodsLoveLive.com. There's a little thing at the top that is a player, radio player, that you can... I think it usually comes up and just starts playing. So it starts playing right away when you come up. So, but bring it up. There's a document there, Partnering with Messiah. Does Jesus still share his work, authority, and power? And I'm going to be working on putting the videos up on the website as well. But you get a chance, go check out all these different notes that Pastor Ryan... This is Pastor Ryan's document that he used when he was doing his sermon series about this very subject. Go check it out. Go through it. Pick it apart. Find biblical proof that this is wrong. Bring it to me, bring it to Pastor Ryan, and we will change direction because we want to follow the Lord's will. We don't want to bend this mission or ministry to our will. We want to follow the Lord's will. Meanwhile, email me, chuckles@godslovelive.com. Call or text 814-651-8865 if you would consider going to godslovelive.com, clicking donate. The donate button, there are two sections below that you can donate, either to Phillipsburg Recovers Project or to the programming on God's Love Live to help with that. You can also click the Cash App link on that page, or the Cash App tag is just right there, just right above me here. So, Cash App, you can donate that way, or if you like, you can stop by the house or mail us, snail mail us something. 64 Grayhampton Road, Woodland, PA 16881 is the address to mail for godslovelive.com. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you on Monday. May the Lord keep you and bless you. Make his face to shine upon you until we meet again. God bless, man. Talk to you later. There's the button.